Hey friends, welcome. I think everywhere in the country this year, the weather has been kind of crazy. Here in South Carolina, where I live, we have had a ridiculous amount of rain this spring. I'm kind of worried that we're not going to have any rain this summer, that it's going to be one of those summers where it doesn't rain for 3 months. So we've had a big problem in the garden this year with slugs. As soon as those little seedlings start to come up, the slugs come munch them because everything is so wet all the time. And even if it dries out during the day, when the sun goes down at night, that dew comes out and the slugs are all through the garden munching away. They took out an entire row of sunflower seedlings in one night. It's heartbreaking. As much as I hate slugs though, there's one thing that I dread more than anything else having to do in my garden. Can you guess it? It's thinning seedlings. I dread it every year, and every year I don't do it, and then I regret not doing it because then I see that the things that I should have pulled made my garden not grow well. Or if I leave little seedlings in that look puny and like they're not gonna do well, they don't do well, but I always feel like, oh, but they have a chance, they could produce food, so why would I pull this out if it could produce food? But nevertheless, every year if I don't pull them out, then they don't produce, and they just are tiny little things. Sometimes they're tiny little slugs like this, and sometimes they're giant ones, but these slugs can turn this into this really fast. There are a lot of different tricks you can use if you're having problems with slugs in your garden. You can put out beer containers and they will be attracted to that and then drown. You can mix up salt water and spray it on your plants, but the problem is when it rains this much, it's just gonna wash it off and it's gonna dilute any beer that you set out to try to attract the slugs. So my best advice is to hand pick off pests anytime that you can. Hand pick and put them into a cup of soapy water and then dispose of them. You could also have certain trap crops to attract them, but these slugs are on everything because it is so rainy out and moist outside and wet all the time. I did not set out to make a video about slugs today, but here we are dealing with slugs. So there are a couple other natural remedies that you can use in your garden to get rid of slugs. One of those is to lay a piece of cardboard down because the moisture will stay under the cardboard and they will congregate under there, and then you can lift it up and dispose of them. And then there is one more trick you can do. If you have these ceramic pots and you have spots in your garden, so like where my sunflowers are, I have a few left in here that they haven't taken out. I came out here earlier and hand picked off any slugs that I saw. So what I'm going to do is put this pot upside down in the garden, and there's space in there they can crawl under. So when it does start to dry out, the moisture will stay under this pot and the slugs will go under there to escape the drying of everything, and then you can lift that pot up and dispose of those slugs. So those are a few natural ways to get rid of slugs. Now let's get to what I was talking about when I started this video. My watermelons are popping up all down this row and the germination has been awesome. There are some spots in here where I did a really good job of spacing, and then there are some spots where I dropped a few altogether. So these need to get thinned. If I have these watermelons too many put together, then they're gonna grow small, my watermelons are gonna be small, and they're not gonna be as good as they could be if they are properly spaced. So we are gonna have to thin these, which is heartbreaking and I hate doing it, but we can pull them out. And if they have some roots on there, I can try to transplant them. But watermelon and squashes are one of those that are just not really good for transplanting. So we're probably just gonna pull these ones out because I did save a ton of watermelon seeds from last year. So I can do another row and still have plenty to spare. Like you can see there's 4 right here. So if there's a bunch in one spot, we're gonna pick the one that looks the strongest. I'm gonna pick that one over there. So we're gonna pull the other ones around it out and leave the strongest looking one. And then we're just gonna keep spacing these as well as we can and pulling some of these other ones out. I know it is definitely heartbreaking having to pull these out, but it's going to be better in the long run to not have too many plants in the same spot. Decisions. I'll pull this one. You can see there's a bunch in this spot. Some of them are a little piddly. Let's leave that one, and then we'll pull these 2 and leave that. And then I'll just keep doing that the whole way down the row, and you can eliminate having to pull seedlings by being really careful about your spacing, but sometimes I just have to get it in the ground, and sometimes I'm more careful about my spacing than other times. It just depends on how tired I am, how much time I have available, and how behind I am on stuff that needs to get planted, and also how many seeds I have available. So like the watermelon, I saved all the seeds from every watermelon we ate last year, so I have a whole jar of seeds. So if I have to pull some seedlings out, I'm not wasting any money on it. I didn't pay for those seeds. I just saved them myself, so I'm not losing money. But if you have 5 seeds in a packet, then be very careful about spacing because you don't want to waste any of those seeds. This is the perfect size to thin seedlings when they're starting to get their first true leaf, but their roots aren't so far established that you have to worry about them pulling out. But if you are finding that their roots are tangling up, instead of pulling it out, you can just take a pair of scissors and just snip it as close to the ground as possible. And also, so that nothing goes to waste, we can take all of these seedlings and give them to the chickens. Or if you have rabbits, you can give them to them, so nothing goes to waste. Or you can throw them in your compost pile. Chip, 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 chip. I hope you aren't having slugs in your garden or having to thin a ton of seedlings, but if you are, I hope that this was helpful for you and gave you some tips and tricks for how to deal with slugs and extra seedlings in your garden. And if you have any helpful tips, feel free to share them down below so everybody else can learn something new. Thanks for coming over and hanging out today. I'll see you next time. Bye.